From the studios of Ave Maria Radio in Ann Arbor, this is Veterans Radio. And now, here's your host, Gary Lilly.
Good morning. I'd like to wish a very nice good morning to all our troops on active duty, all branches of the service. You have our respect and admiration and our thanks. Good morning to my veteran brothers and sisters, and welcome home. Good morning, America, and all the people around the world who are listening on the internet. Good morning. Welcome to Veterans Radio, which is brought to you by the Ave Maria Radio Studios in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Good morning, Ken. In the control booth, we've got Ken Rogie, the old our Air Force Armed Forces radio veteran.
Oh, what do you mean by old?
Old. Experienced.
Oh, okay, there you go. Experienced.
Very experienced. Many years of experience.
I was almost listening to you at the opener, and I thought it was Gabriel Heater for a minute. Wait, all the ships at sea.
And let's throw that in there. And good morning to all the ships at sea.
And how are you this morning?
I'm fine, Ken. How are you?
I'm good. I'm ready to go.
Okay, good.
We got a beautiful day outside. It's going to be sunny all day, and got Michigan-Ohio State football game. Long-standing rivalry.
A lot of money exchanging hands in Michigan these days, or today. You got 700,000 deer hunters out there. At the deer season opened a couple of days ago. If we'd have had 700,000 troops in Vietnam, we'd have overrun them.
Yeah, we did. Well, we did that, actually, but, I
didn't know that we ever had that many.
Well, we didn't have that many troops, no, but we overran them.
Yeah. Well, we had good people.
Yeah. My son-in-law went out deer hunting the first day of the season and got himself a deer.
Good.
Yeah. He was only out about an hour, and he got a deer. So
that caused me to think. At Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 310, and I don't know how to tell people to get a hold of us on this, but we're going to be taking deer meat and taking it to Dunbar's meat locker down in Milan. They're going to be processing deer for us into deer sausage and deer jerky at a very reduced price, and we're going to be sending it to the troops overseas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how do we get people to donate deer and deer meat to Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 310? Have them email us. I got a deer. How do I get it to you?
Right. They can go to our website, and that's VVA310.org, I believe it is.
Right, or go to veteransradio.net, send them an email to us, and we'll pass it on.
And we'll pass it on. Absolutely.
We if you deliver, I don't think we go up to the Upper Peninsula to pick it up.
I don't know where we would go to pick it up, really.
But speaking of that, if you drive to the far end of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan from this area, it's closer to drive to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, it is. It's a long drive up there.
It is. Let's talk about veterans.
Okay.
Do you want to go right into the welcome homes, Ken?
We can, unless you got something else you want to talk about.
No, the news that I've been seeing lately is about some of these growing protest movements and people blocking there's people over in Portland, Oregon, trying to block the ships that are sending our Stryker vehicles over to Iraq because they don't believe in the war.
Right.
Hey, folks. The troops need the equipment. You might not go block Congress.
Right.
If you want to do something productive, block Congress, barricade Congress. Don't let them in.
Or send them emails.
Send them emails.
Send them to the president.
Voice your protest, but do not keep our materials from reaching our troops in Iraq. That's foolishness. Yeah. Over in the East Coast, at one town, the Boy Scouts got permission ahead of time to put out boxes to collect donations for the troops.
Mm-hmm.
One person complained, said it was promoting the war, and they pulled all those boxes out after the Boy Scouts had spent $1,500 in marketing and in these boxes. Right. Again, folks, you're not hurting. You're only hurting the troops.
Yeah, not hurting the war effort.
You're not hurting the war effort at all. You're hurting our troops, and what kind of a message are you giving to the scouts?
Well, the protest was that they were sending a political message at the polling station, and that's barred by their state law. You can't be within, I think it's 100 feet of the entrance to the polling station. But everybody's saying, but they weren't making a statement about the war. They were making a statement about the troops.
for decades we've heard people say, well, we've learned how to separate the war from the warrior. And I thought, wait till the next war comes along. Let's see how true that is.
And we're there.
Unfortunately. No one hates war more than veterans.
You're right. You're right. There was something else recently in the news. The Kansas church group that's protest at the funerals of the veterans were sued by a father of a fallen warrior, and he won in court and was awarded several $1 million.
11.
And the church says, we don't have that money. I'm sorry.
Well, I was at the 25th anniversary of the wall last weekend, and there was a nice parade. There was 10,000 of the Vietnam vets turned out, which was thinning of the ranks. There were 30,000 for the 10th anniversary, and there was probably 3,000 or 4,000 standing on the curbs, waving and shouting "Welcome home" to each other. People that couldn't do all that walking anymore. And on the corner, the first corner, there was that church group over in the corner with all their obscene signs.
Yeah.
Well, I don't believe they're a church group.
No.
Ken, who are we welcoming home today? We want to welcome home these troops.
Gary, we've got some units that have come home this past week, and Veterans Radio is very happy to welcome them home. The Army Reserve's 303rd Military Police Company arrived back home to Jackson, Michigan late Wednesday evening. The 759th Military Police Battalion came home to Fort Carson on Monday after an extended 15-month tour. And soldiers with the 447th Military Police Company arrived at the Akron-Canton Airport on Wednesday. The 4th Brigade Combat Team, 1st Cavalry Division's 200 soldiers arrived home Monday at Fort Bliss, Texas, after spending a year in Iraq.
And good morning. We're back on Veterans Radio. We've got a good show. An old friend of mine that's going to be interviewed today, Michael J. Martin. The theme today is Walking Point. I remember when I was in country and we were building a fire support base, watching the Marines go out. And there was always that point man, and I thought, who would want to walk point? And this morning we might find out who would walk point, and whether it was voluntary or whether it was something that the squad leader said, you're walking point today. Michael J. Martin, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Good morning, old buddy.
Good morning. I want to talk to the people on the air, listening on the air, just for a second. This is very difficult at times. I scoured and you asked a few people to be on with you. I always like to have two people on to be interviewed because they play off of each other, and one says something and it reminds the other of something. And it's very difficult to find people to talk about these experiences. I know that you have, because you and I have talked to schools. But you've had a lot of help inwardly by writing the music about it.
I've always considered that to be a blessing because it is a great means of getting what's inside you out and helping others at the same time. I understand. I talked to a couple of my friends. That we had one guy we had lined up, and even myself, and I'm used to it. I'm used to going into classrooms. I'm used to talking about it and so forth. But as I prepared for this show, there was a certain amount of trepidation. I wondered, oh man, I can't talk about that. These sorts of things that pop up. It's sometimes a difficult thing to drag up old memories about. But those memories are very active. Very rarely does a day go by that I don't think about these things. They stay with you a lifetime.
I'm surprised even here there's the rare day that goes by. Yes, the people that I talk to, especially with the Iraq War going on right now, they're having a tough time of it. And the one fellow, dear friend of yours and a friend of mine, said yes, and he sounded kind of enthused. My phone rang the next morning very early, and he said, Gary, I can't do it. I've been awake all night, and it's just brought back too many memories. And Michael, you walked point, and you lost a lot of friends over there. Now, the one thing that I always wondered about was you would imagine that's always the point man that's hit first, but it wasn't necessarily, right?
No, I had there were circumstances, and there was one circumstance in particular that I walked past probably a command detonated mine. I think they let me go by. There were no signs indicating anything was going to be there, except, in hindsight, I should have picked up that we were about to get into something because of the way the people in the village were acting when we came through. They knew something was about to go down. We were walking through this field, and I walked by it, and my squad leader walked by it, and they were probably laying for the machine gunner. They want to get the machine gunner primarily because he's the guy that's going to put out the firepower, and we had a real good one. But at the last minute, for some reason, just as they came up over this little hump, this guy came around the machine gunner, and he said that what he remembered was wondering where the hell he thought he was going. And the second thought that he had was, what's this dirt doing in my mouth? Because the whole mound just exploded. He got a whole mouthful of it, and he knocked him through the air. And the machine gunner was slightly wounded, but the other guy was essentially blown in half. And it was devastating to everybody. He was a real good guy, and as I looked at him laying in that crater without any legs, I had a vision of myself, because it could have been me.
And that's one of your songs that you wrote, which the songs you write are not about, they're telling war stories, but they're telling it in a way that is healing. And I could hear the emotions coming back in your voice as you visualize that, because nobody is tighter on the face of the earth, I don't believe, than those who have been in combat together and lived through it.
Yeah, the guys in your squad are like your brothers, and the guys that like that machine gunner I'm talking about a while ago. His nickname was Zeke, so I'll call him Zeke. They called me Dino, but he just was visiting here about a month ago. But he and I are in regular contact after almost 40 years, and I'm still in regular contact with a lot of the guys that were in my platoon and company.
There's a lot of technology that where you have a lot to be thankful for. We're finding each other on the internet. We can talk forever on the cell phone without costing an arm and a leg. And when we got a phone call a month or so ago on the War Dog Show from Tasmania, and I found out that Al Wood, our dear friend, it was on about 9 minutes, and it only cost $1.30. $1.40. Can you imagine that, from Tasmania?
It cost my old man quite a bit when I called him up collect from Australia on my R&R. I don't think he ever got over that.
Nice son, stay alive, see you later.
The most traumatic experience he had as far from my war experience was opening up that telephone bill.
Did he have to take out a loan to pay it?
Yeah, he never let me forget it.
Yeah, probably brought on some PTSD right there. Hey, Michael, we're talking about this, and we have not introduced those who do not know Point. When we talk about Walking Point, give us a brief description of what Walking Point is.
Well, it's the first fool in the file. It's the guy up front. We usually walked kind of in a tandem. I walked with the same guy, walking slack second. Right behind me was my squad leader, who was a Michigan boy, by the way, and he was very good. And we kind of had teamwork. I focused mostly on the trails when we were walking trails and so forth, and he focused on the tree lines and so forth. And he walked pretty close, and then we kind of spread it out. After that, but the guy up front is there to, for one thing that you have to do, aside from the dangers and so forth, is just find a good way to get, a lot of times I had a whole company behind me. Most of the time it was a platoon or a squad. I thought we were more effective. The smaller the unit, the more effective we were. And but my job was primarily to get us there, and find the best way so that everybody wasn't completely exhausted, find a way that we would get us there that would not put us in a situation to be ambushed or take us then down routes that would likely be booby-trapped. And, I did use trails. A lot of guys didn't use trails at all, but I did. I think that you have to be very confident to the point of arrogance on point, but you can't be stupid. They couldn't be stupid either. They set up, the booby traps on the trails. They didn't want to be wasting them on civilians and antagonizing the civilian populace. So there were signs, and that's what I looked for, was anything that looked out of place. If it was out of place, then I got concerned. The guy that I was talking about a while ago, Zeke, he was our machine gunner, but when I went on when I went on R&R to Australia, he walked point and he got shot. And I asked him, we talked about it many years later, what happened specifically, and he said he walked up on this thing, and he said he's a New York guy, so I'll do my New York accent. He said, I was walking along there, and I looked up and I saw this guy, this thing had looked like it didn't belong, like it was something strange, and then all of a sudden the lid popped up, and out come this guy out of a spider hole, and there were bullets flying everywhere, and I was trying to hide behind this little tree, and I was thinking behind that tree, this wouldn't have happened to Dino. And it wouldn't have.
Yeah. I've heard this from a lot of guys that walk point, and people in combat.
Like that, I would have been prepared. I would have been, and I walked with that 16 on rock and roll, full automatic, and if I saw something and didn't look right, I would have checked it out a little closer. But I would have any movement there at all, and I would have blown it away. I was quick on the trigger, and
you didn't walk with your safety on, correct?
Oh no, I walked on rock and roll. Yeah. But I was a hunter when I was a kid, and I've always been around guns. I've never had a gun go off I didn't want to.
Okay. When you're walking the trails, you talk to people.
You don't have time to flip a safety in those kind of situations. You have to have the psychological advantage. You not only have to be willing to kill, you got to want to. You got to be eager, just ready to pounce on it. That there can't be a moment's hesitation about, what shall I kill, shall I not kill? You got to have already all of that stuff already resolved in your mind, and you got to be ready to go.
When you walk point, it's not like you went out and wandered around. You had a destination. Is that correct? Who would set the destination? What would the mission be?
Well, that would come down from a battalion commander or a company. Battalion commander would place something down to a company commander. What we did a lot on a company level in the area that I worked is we would go into an area. They would set up sort of a command point, and from that area, and the captain would be in that area, and they'd set up a little area there, and then we would do cloverleaf patrols. Each platoon going out on a different cloverleaf and so forth, and we'd all know where we were and so forth, and really check an area out. When I knew that when we turned over the war to the Vietnamese, that they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't have the diligence to do that. They hadn't given any indication that they would before, And when you don't patrol an area, you allow the enemy to come in.
I had never heard that before. As many years as I've known you, and that I've talked to other people that were out there, other grunts, that term, the cloverleaf. I learned something just now. What was the most dangerous point in the day? Was it leaving out there wherever you were, or coming back?
I think, the one lesson that I learned early on, we got into an ambush when I was new walking point. When I first started walking point, I had a lieutenant actually that was walking in front of me. He had a Vietnamese girl, and he he could speak a little bit of Vietnamese and so forth, and she was leading us to stuff, and we had contact all day long, and there was a lot of action. And on the way back, we came back the same way we went out, just to keep from getting lost. And they were laying for us, and we got ambushed, and a guy got killed, some other guys got wounded, In an ambush, really, points almost the safest place you could be, because they do not want the point man. They'll let you walk through. They want the middle of the file. They want to get the officer. They want to get the radio man. They want to get the machine gunner, but they're not after the point man. With the point men, the primary dangers were tripwires and just encounters on the trail.
When it comes to tripwires, I knew another guy that walked point, the same unit as yours, but about a year later, and apparently they had a lot of tripwires, and he said his eyes, even when he goes in the woods today, he lives up north, he said his eyes automatically lock on the ground in front of him, and his comment was, if I stepped over a hole, the man that walked second was called Slack, and you said it was your squad leader. And Rat was his nickname, and he said if I stepped over a hole, he'd better fall in it. In other words, what Larry was doing, Rat was doing, was looking at the ground for tripwires and for mines, and the Slack man was watching ahead and to the right and to the left.
Yeah, that's the same way we did. It was kind of like I said, in tandem. And I had a really good Slack man. We had a really good rapport, another thing that I really liked about Point is that, and I went to Point after I had been there about 3 months, not quite 3 months. I went to Point, and by that time, I wasn't a new guy anymore. I had seen a lot of action and so forth, and so the new shine was off of me, but I still had a lot to learn. The guy that had walked Point prior to me was a legend, and I had some incredible shoes to fill, but he went directly from our outfit to LRPs, and I didn't have the opportunity of getting any training from him.
LRP is a long-range reconnaissance patrol. Small teams go out into Indian country, as it was called, and looking to gather information and to avoid contact, which they couldn't always do. So
they invited me later on. They invited me to go into that, but by that time I had such an allegiance to my guys that I didn't want to be separated from them. But I always considered it a compliment because it was a very elite group, and to be asked to join them was very flattering.
For the folks listening out there, when you mentioned the guy was a legend, we're talking 18, 19, and 20-year-old kids.
Yeah, so was Billy the Kid.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the legend that you had. You got a reputation, and it was like the same kind of thing, just quick draw type stuff, and also it had a legend, the part of the legend had to do with the willingness to kill. Usually the guy on Point was the guy who did the killing, those kind of things, and I was so. Something snapped when we lost friends and so forth. When I lost my brothers, it was like I just got hardcore. That term is tossed around pretty easily right now, hardcore. It mostly means porno or something like that. But if you will recall, that term hardcore became part of the vernacular from Vietnam.
I remember you telling me, Michael, about how everybody turned hard after Hurley was blown up in that mine. I watched a CD recently, or DVD recently, called Shakey's Hill, and I could recommend anybody interested in what troops did for them, get on the internet and find Shakey's Hill. Shakey was a young kid who was 18 years old, was killed taking this hill, and they named it Shakey's Hill. And after they took some casualties one day, this was the Cav. They were in Cambodia. They had probably the bravest cameraman I've ever seen, because when these guys were going, had been picked up, they were in combat, he could have held onto their shirt tails following behind them as they were blasting away. But they took some casualties, and then he was interviewing the guys, and they were talking, and he was filming them. They were strapping on ammunition, and they were strapping on their rucksacks and picking up their weapons. There was a hard look in their eyes. They said it no longer mattered what the mission was. We were out for revenge.
Revenge is a big motivator. It is, and it certainly was for me. I'm not saying that boastfully or anything like that. There are things that I did that I regret, but I think that regardless, you still had to have that mindset. You had to have a point man that was going to get it done.
You may have regretted it, but you lived to regret it.
Yeah, and most of my guys lived too.
Michael, Ken Rogi's got a question of you.
Were you always on point, or was that a rotating position?
In most companies, it rotated, and it rotated with us too. But most of the time, we were on point because we liked it. We had the front three, myself, the squad leader, the machine gunner. We all thrived on it, and we did. And it really just, I felt miserable walking in the middle of a file. Sometimes we would do that coming through a jungle or something like that, and I hated it. On point, you set your own pace. You never got bored. Even if there was nothing happening, you were involved. You were in the game. Your head was in the game. You were focused. And on point, the days just seemed to fly by, and walking in the middle of the file, they seemed to last forever.
And what kind of weaponry did you carry?
I carried a 16. I carried 19 magazines, and in one, I had 3 bandoliers of magazines, which would of 7, so that would be 21. And I had one empty pouch that, just the way I strung them, it was where I was in my armpit. I didn't want a magazine there, and I carried a can of oil in one of the pouches.
And how many grenades?
I carried usually about 4 grenades. I carried 1 in each pocket.
Okay.
And a couple of them strapped to my the suspenders on the pistol belt.
All right.
And I also had a rucksack.
Hold on a second, Michael. We're counting down to a break time, and we're going to get back to that. We're going to finish up what you carried, and we're going to finish up with some of the stories of what happened. We'll be right back. You're listening to Veterans Radio.
The Medal of Honor is the highest award for valor in combat given a member of the Armed Forces of the United States. There have been over 3,400 recipients of the nation's highest award. This is one of them. Second Lieutenant Frank Luke attacked 3 German observation balloons in the face of oncoming German aircraft. Details after this. After having previously destroyed a number of enemy aircraft within 17 days, Luke voluntarily started on a patrol after German observation balloons. Though pursued by 8 German planes that were protecting the enemy balloon line, he unhesitatingly attacked and shot down 3 German balloons, while he himself was under heavy fire from ground batteries and the hostile planes. Severely wounded, he descended to within 50 meters of the ground, and flying at this low altitude, opened fire upon enemy troops, killing 6 and wounding as many more. Forced to make a landing and surrounded on all sides by the enemy, who called upon him to surrender, he drew his automatic pistol and defended himself until he fell dead from a wound in the chest. Luke Air Force Base was named after him. The Medal of Honor Series is a production of Veterans Radio.
And we're back on Veterans Radio. We're talking to Michael J. Martin, and we're talking about Walking Point. Michael, finish up telling us what you carried.
Well, to answer the question that Ken asked a little bit ago about, each platoon in a company, you had 3 or 4 platoons in a company. If you had a mortar platoon, you had 3. If you didn't, and each platoon had their own point man. Each squad had their own point man. So there was some rotation involved. If we were moving in a company element, sometime I had to walk on the middle of the file, but I was just absolutely miserable. And usually we took point. Our squad took point regardless. We didn't do so much the rotation, particularly after I got my reputation, because if I do say so myself, I was the best man for the job. And that was primarily the reason that I was there. If I wasn't good at it, then then I wouldn't still be here, and I wouldn't last it very long on point.
What was that old TV show where Walter Brennan would say, "No brag, just fact"?
Well,
that goes
like
way back.
Dean said, it ain't bragging if you can do it. You
right.
know, I did 8 months solid on point, and then I went to squad leader after that. So I was walking second, and I walked point on my last day in the field.
Michael, we've been talking to you all this time. What unit were you with, and what years were you there?
I was in the Americal Division, the notorious 11th Light Infantry Brigade, Charlie Company 4th of the 3rd, 68, 69.
And that's what the first question that Vietnam vets always ask each other, and we're half an hour into it before I ask you that. That's because I already knew it.
Yeah.
Michael,
the other thing
different.
I was talking about was the fact that I really did travel light. You know that a point man had to be agile and mobile, and I traveled very, very light. The only thing that I didn't carry much personal gear. I didn't carry an air mattress or anything like that. The one extra thing that I did carry was a machete, which that's where I had to earn my stripes. And one of those days when we had to chop our way through, my hands would just be bloody at the end of the day. You know?
And what is a wait a minute vine? You hear the troops talking about that all the time.
Well, that's one reason I initially carried the machine gun. I started out, it was like a mule, you know. When I first got there, they just loaded me down with all this stuff, you know, give it to the new guy. And I was humping mortars and claymores and trenching tools and anything I could find. And then I carried a machine gun, and that was a lot of weight, too. It's very cumbersome, and there were these wait-a-minute vines that you get tangled on. And it was just coming through a jungle with a machine gun was just very awkward, and I felt like a clumsy clod. And then when I moved to point, it was like I belonged on point. I didn't even know who I was till I started walking point. I took point, and I found my grace.
Tell us about the first day you walked point, and how did it come about?
Well, you know, it started out, you know, like I would take the point, you know, when we had our regular point men and so forth, but when we split off into small teams, fire teams and stuff like that, I started taking point. I had kind of made my bones going in tunnels before I started walking in point. And
another
people realized
sign
that
of
I was
sanity.
one of those crazy guys that did stuff like that.
Right.
So it was kind of understood. I remember when Lynn went to recon that and it was understood that I was going to be the new point man, and I was sitting in a poker game on a fire base, and I drew aces and eights, right?
And that is known as?
The dead man's hand,
okay.
You know, from Wild Bill Hickok lore. That's what he was holding when he got shot. You know, and it was the winning hand. I threw it down in the dirt. You know, we were all squatting on the ground playing high dollar poker. You know, and I dropped it there, and everybody just kind of looked at it. This black guy sitting next to me went, "Man, I don't be anywhere near you."
So, are you telling me that grunts are a little bit suspicious?
Well, I'm
not suspicious. What is the,
you know, in kind of a reverse way.
Superstitious.
I drew the aces and eights on the front of my helmet and on the back of my flak jacket, just to let everybody know that I was crazy, not to mess with me.
And
wait, Michael J., weren't you a little bit big for being a tunnel rat?
I'm big now, Ken. But I was. You know, I was probably about 160 pounds then, and you know and I was a little bit big for being in the tunnel rat, but I didn't really call myself a tunnel rat. You know, those guys, professionals, they get paid extra and stuff like that. You know, I just went into tunnels, and it had more to do with the fact that nobody else wanted to go into them. You know, that I just started doing it, and you found stuff in tunnels, and you get rewarded for it. You know, you get a weapons cache, you get a 3-day R&R out of it, something like that. You know, that I started doing that, and like I said, I was an action junkie. You know, and I was looking for whatever I could find. You know, and
what do you expect? You're from Texas.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, we're going to do a show on the tunnel rats. We're going to do a show on tunnel rats in the future, but I want to get back. I want you to tell us the very first day that you walked point. What was it like? What was going on in your mind? What were you seeing?
It was almost like I could feel the wind in my hair. You know, it was up front. I was setting my own pace, and I felt, and it was like the respect that went along with it. You weren't just another schmuck running along in the squad or something. You know, you were point man. You know, and I felt it was exhilarating, and just to be able to set the pace and hit my stride, and having all those guys walking behind me, counting on me to get us there. You know, and
you still sound cocky.
Huh?
You still sound cocky.
I am cocky. I can't help it. You know, but we got fired on from this hill. Nobody got hit initially. But you know, from that point, we got in some reinforcements or something, you know, and we were engaged. Much of the day we spent pinned down. And after that, I was no longer on point because we went on an online assault. So we were all moving up that hill, and what they did was very skillfully lure us into a minefield.
Oh.
Where we took some casualties, but we weren't like coming into this situation single file. We were on line. So that was my first day on point. My first day on point, a guy got killed, but he wasn't following in my footsteps or anything like that. He did hit a mine, and there were some other guys that were messed up, but he was a guy in my squad get killed. That was January 31st, 1969.
And those dates always stick in your mind. I'm going to ask you two questions. We've got about 3 minutes and 40 seconds, Michael. But I'm going to ask you, what happened as soon as the firing started? What did you do? And then second, there's a day that you always talked about, the only day you ever went through all of your ammunition.
Well, actually, we went through all of it on January 31st. It was an all-day firefight, and much of the day we spent pinned down. But then a month later, February 28th, we had a platoon wiped out. It wasn't my platoon, but in the madness, those are the guys that I ended up with, and I probably went through most of my ammunition that day. But January 31st, we found out, you know, we had a Sergeant Knight was this big black guy that was our platoon sergeant. He had been in the Korean War. He was an old guy. He was 42, 43 years old, oldest guy in the battalion, still humping a pack. And most of the guys couldn't even pick up his pack. And on January 31st, we found out what was in it. It was ammo. So when everybody ran out, he still had plenty to pass around, you know.
Did you do most of your patrolling in the rice paddies or in the jungles?
Well, for what I always thought, why don't they put us someplace and let us get familiar with the terrain? But they didn't. They moved us around constantly. You know, about the time we would really, you know, sometimes we worked the rice paddies in the villages, and we came to even know people in the village that were friendly to us, and those who weren't, and get a sense of things like that, and then move us someplace else, move somebody else in that. It was just stupid. And so we worked paddies, and when we get out on the paddies, then I set a stride, and I would get across those paddies in a hurry, because I always felt like a sitting duck in a paddy. And when the first time we walked across the paddy, I thought, my God, they could see us for miles. And I asked a guy, why are we walking through this rice paddy like this? And he said, so they'll shoot at us, and we'll know where they're at.
Military think.
Military think.
And you're right about seeing them for miles. When we were building Hill 35, I stood on the top of that hill and watched those Marines going line abreast through the paddies, and I thought, my gosh, that takes some guts. And I could see them a long distance off.
But the thing about the paddies that was, you know, if it was the dry season, it was like walking on a highway. You know, you could really get your stride going, and then also even in the wet season, you could walk. You know, just like the Vietnamese did, the dikes themselves, you could walk on, and you get the hang of that. You know, it's like walking a tight wire sometimes. But you could do it.
I did walk those, and you felt very vulnerable up there.
And then sometimes you just have to slosh through, and that's probably one of the reasons my feet are so messed up right now too.
Right. I always said after Vietnam I'll never walk in mud again, but I'll tell you what, they don't have mud in this country.
The jungles were that's where the real artistry of Point came in. I think was that you really, when I walk into the woods right now, my senses just kick in. I become super alert.
Okay, Michael, hold that thought. We're going to come back. We're coming up on a break, and you are listening to Veterans Radio, Walking. And we're back on Veterans Radio talking to Michael J. Martin about Walking Point. Michael, pick up on that last thought you had, if you remember.
Well, I was talking about walking through the jungles, and I said that's where the skill of Walking Point came in. And I think that it was a lot of it was it couldn't be taught. It was just something that you had to do naturally. Your instincts. It's all of your senses were at work. You were listening. The critters in the trees would tell you things. Your own voice, that inner voice. I had a shrink ask me one time if I ever heard voices. I said, "You mean like the one that got me through Nam?" Yeah. You pay attention too. And your smell. Of course, you're using your eyes and everything like that. But there was one incident that my nose, which I hadn't got a great sense of smell, but I did smell cooking, and I smelled food being cooked in the jungle. There was nothing else to tip me, And at the time, I had a whole company behind me, and they were making a lot of racket and everything, So I left them behind. I told everybody to shut up, and we went forward with one squad and walked right into a base camp that was very well concealed, But and then things started happening real quick once we got in there and so forth. It got, we caught them by surprise.
Well, let's talk about the adrenaline rush. When you're in these things and you see something, you feel your adrenaline build up.
I am, like I said, I like the action. Let me steal a line from Winston Churchill. You can't do any better than that. He said there is nothing quite as exhilarating as being shot at without result. And that's absolutely true. It's like you never feel so alive as when you think you're fixing to get killed. It's the adrenaline rush, the excitement. I don't want to glorify it or glamorize it or anything like that, but I've had a lot of glory in my life on stages and things like that, and there's a lot of adrenaline there. I think that's part of what called me to what I'm doing now and making music, is because you do tap into that adrenaline. But I became an adrenaline junkie. I liked it, and I came back. It's a wonder I didn't end up behind bars.
I got a question about resupply. Now, you were talking about running out of ammunition. What did you do in that situation? Was there a supply run somehow?
Yeah, sometimes we were difficult to get to in a jungle. When I had malaria, was in a jungle, and I was out there for 3 days that I don't even hardly remember. I was sick as a dog, but they couldn't get to me to dust me off. We had a guy killed one time, and at the bottom of a mountain, pretty much about halfway down a mountain, and we had to carry him through the jungle to the top. And by the time we got to the top, they had cleared an area for. He was still battling. He was shot in the head and everything, but he was still battling him while we were carrying it up, and we got him to the top. And by the time we got him to the top, the rest of the guys had cleared a place for a chopper to land on top of that mountain. I mean, they were just working like with a frenzy with the machetes and the entrenching tools and doing whatever they had to do to clear a place for the helicopter to land. And the guy died anyway. And it was such a valiant effort in vain. I think it was one time when everybody just broke down and cried. He was just a really well-liked guy, and to make that kind of effort Everybody out there that day was heroic.
In that situation, though, you don't think, well, this guy's going to die. You just said we got to clear it.
He was going to die. This guy had a wound like Kennedy, man.
But you weren't.
He was shot right in the head. But we were still.
You could still fight for him.
We were still going to fight every bit of the way for him. And as a result of that, a lot of guys are still walking around out there that had wounds that nobody thought that they could live through. But this guy, I couldn't believe he had lost so much of his head, and he was still calling for mama. It was incredible.
How old was he, Michael?
He was probably about 20, like the rest of us. I don't know. I remember he was one of the few rich guys that I knew. And his father was some big industrialist or something in the Midwest. We all looked at him like he was crazy for being out there with us, because rich guys had options,
right?
And we didn't. We were most of the guys out there, were a good bunch of. Most of us were draftings, There were some RA guys out there and so forth, but you sign up and you get a little bit better choice of what you want, and most people don't want to be in the infantry. Once you're there, once you're a grunt, you don't want to be anyplace else. Once I got past that initial feeling of how am I possibly going to live through this, it was like, well, you've been around us. We're the most elitist people in the world.
I've never seen a tighter group than the grunts, and from that standpoint, I have some envy of you. I'm close to the guys I served with, but you see the grunts. That's a brotherhood.
I remember one night, me and Zeke, it was after we had, the day after Don Michaels was killed, and we were in a foxhole, and the battleship New Jersey was firing what sounded like flying Volkswagens coming over our heads, And
that's about the right size.
And they told us to stay in this foxhole all night, and he and I spent the whole night in this hole, and just crying and talking about revenge and things like that, But and he and I are brothers, as if we were born of the same womb that night, of spending that night in a hole together like that, and the feeling that you have, just like you have as a CB, when you're looking around and you're seeing as much as you're aching and your body's about to give out on you, you look around and everybody else is the same way.
Well, that's what keeps you going is you don't want to let the guys down that are near you, and we didn't want to let the Marines down. Michael, you were awarded the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, you got the Purple Heart, the Combat Infantry Badge. Did everybody get the recognition and the medals they deserved?
No, the officers did.
We all know that.
The officers, I'm not sure if deserved it's the word.
You know what? We don't like to talk about that because there were some awfully brave officers out there.
And there were, and some of them had them deserved. But there were also people that we considered outright cowards that were highly decorated. If you wanted medals, you could get them.
Right. But
if you were looking to build up your resume, Vietnam was the place to be.
What did you do to earn the Silver Star?
We knocked out a 51 caliber machine gun, and at that point, I was squad leader. I was breaking in a new point man, and he was a guy who had the basic qualities of a point man. He had good eyes, good instinct, was very good shot, and he just had incredible eyes. We had come into a hot LZ the day before, and we'd taken fire, and they had aborted the CA, called it off, and left us about 30 guys on top of a hill, and told us that we were going to be, there's a very good chance we had a battalion in the valley, and that we were probably going to get overrun that night. But we didn't. To make a long story short, we thought we were going to. We thought it was the Alamo, man, but we didn't. Nothing happened. And the next day, we started getting in reinforcements. They brought in the rest of the company early that morning. But they knew that we had a 51 caliber machine gun that was down in helicopters in that valley. And so we went looking for it the next day. And we were on we were on point, and I had my point man stopped at one point. Like I said, he was new, and he said he thought he saw some unusual movement in this bush up in front of us about 60 yards. And I said, lesson number one, if the bush moves, blow the bush away. And so we both opened up on it and then went up to check it out. And sure enough, there was a dead NVA soldier. And we were checking him out, going through his pockets and things. And I noticed that he had the bottom of his shoe was built up about 4 inches. He had a club foot. And, of course, in Hanoi, that didn't get you out of military service, but they use these guys sometimes as bait. I had heard the old guys talk, and heard in the same situations, about where they had one guy be a sacrificial lamb just to draw you into a situation.
We got about a minute to finish this up.
And I looked up the hill, and I figured out where the 51 caliber machine gun was, And I wanted to call in artillery on it at that point, but the new CO wouldn't do it, so another helicopter flew over and it blew them down. 10 guys were killed, and then we called artillery in, and then we went up. But we still had to go up the hill and take the machine gun. And our squad, Opportune took it. We took it in 2 squads, and that's what they give me the Silver Star for.
You did a frontal assault.
I think they give me the Silver Star primarily for not killing the captain.
Yeah. Well, didn't he make a comment that artillery rounds were expensive?
Yeah, he said we don't know if there's anything up there or not. He was a new guy. I was an old guy.
Yeah.
I was 20 years old, and he was probably 30. But the deal is he had come out to our captain had been hit the day before, coming into the hot LZ, and he was the replacement. And he didn't have enough sense to listen to the point man. I had gotten used to point man transcends rank.
Right.
Nobody even thinks about what rank a point man is. If a point man says something, it's go. Okay. You have to defer to your point man if you got any sense at all.
Michael, believe it or not, an hour is come and gone.
Quickly, too.
Quickly, right. And as always, I appreciate talking to you. I appreciate being around you. It's always great to see you, brother. And thank you so much.
I love you too, man.
I love you.
Hey, next time you're up in Ann Arbor, you got to come on, do your music.
Twist my arm.
Okay,
right.
We can do that.
All right, Michael, thanks a lot. And you can go to YouTube or MySpace to find Michael J. Martin. You can go to his website. What is it?
It's www.myspace.com/Michael J. Martin Music.
Okay, real good. We're gonna if you want to know that, email us. You are dismissed.